The way you think about money was decided before you were old enough to question it, and it's been running your financial life ever since. I grew up not knowing much about money, made every mistake in the book, and as a result, I was thousands in debt before the age of 22. And the more that I studied the psychology behind all of it, the more I realized none of it was random. It was all programming. So if you've ever wondered why you do what you do with money, why you self-sabotage, why you can never seem to hold on to it, and why you know what you should do but still don't do it, this video is going to explain exactly why, and more importantly, what to do about it. So let's start with the programming itself, because I think this is the piece that most people are completely missing, and it genuinely changes how you see your own behavior. There is this financial psychologist called Brad Clance who spent years researching this, and what he found is that we all carry what he calls money scripts. They're basically core beliefs about money that we pick up during childhood, usually without anyone ever sitting us down and deliberately teaching them to us. We basically just absorb them from our parents, from how money was talked about or not talked about, and from home or from the culture that we grew up in. And the thing that makes these so powerful and so hard to shake is that they're mostly unconscious. So you're walking around every day making financial decisions based on a script that you don't even know you are following. It's not really something that you choose to do. It is the recording of your childhood playing. Now, Brad Clance also found that almost everyone falls into one or more of 4 money scripts, and I want to walk you through all of them because you will probably recognize yourself in at least one of them. And when you do, you can start being aware of how you treat your money. So the first one is money avoidance. And this is the belief that money is somehow bad, that rich people are greedy, that wanting more makes you shallow and materialistic, that there's something a bit uncomfortable about caring too much about money. And if this is your script, then here's what tends to happen. You'll often unconsciously sabotage yourself financially because somewhere deep down, succeeding with money would mean becoming the thing that you were taught to look down on. So you stay small, you undercharge, you don't negotiate, you spend money the moment that you have it, and you tell yourself it is because you're just not that bothered about money, when really it's because you were taught subtly and repeatedly that people who are too bothered about money are not good people. The second script is money worship, and this is the belief that more money will fix everything, that the next salary bump, the next purchase, the next level of income is finally going to be the thing that makes you feel okay, that if you could just get to a certain number, you'd feel secure or happy or enough. And the trap here is obvious once you see it, because the number keeps moving. You hit the goal and it doesn't feel the way that you thought it would, so you set a new goal. And you're never quite there because there isn't actually a number, it is a feeling. And chasing it with money is like trying to fill a hole with the wrong thing. The third script is money status. So this is when your self-worth gets tied to your net worth, when what you have becomes a reflection of who you are. And this is the script that has people trying to look richer rather than actually building wealth. People in this script tend to spend money that they don't have to project a version of success and buying things to signal a lifestyle because on some level their sense of value depends on how they're perceived financially. And the fourth is money vigilance. This is the one where money feels like something you have to watch constantly, where it feels scarce and a little frightening, and when talking openly about how much you have or earn feels almost shameful. And interestingly, people with this script are often really disciplined savers. They are very careful with their money, they're responsible, but they tend to never actually grow their money because everything feels too risky. And so their money just sits there doing nothing, quietly losing value to inflation, while they feel vaguely guilty about not doing more with it, but also are too scared to try. Now, here's something that I think is one of the most interesting things that Clance found, and that I really want you to sit with. Most of us have a financial comfort zone, a level of money where we feel safe, where our nervous system relaxes, and researchers think that that number also gets set in childhood. Whatever doing okay looked like in the house where you grew up, your nervous system learns to read that as normal and as safe, and going significantly above it can start to feel wrong, not consciously or logically, but on a gut level. So you find ways to correct back down. You overspend, you underinvest, you take the lower paying job, you turn down the opportunity, and from the outside it looks like bad luck or bad decision making, but what it actually is your nervous system pulling you back to the level it learned was home. And I find this genuinely fascinating to think about because it means that a lot of financial self-sabotage isn't really self-sabotage at all. It is self-preservation. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. The work here is being aware of the beliefs that you carry because these scripts only run the show when they're invisible. So how how to change the narrative of your script is when you notice a thought about money coming up, you pause on it for a second. You ask yourself, is this thought actually mine? Or is this my mom's voice, my dad's, or something I absorbed from the environment that I grew up in before I was old enough to question it? Because once the belief is just a thing someone taught you, you get to decide whether it still makes sense to keep it. Okay, so let's move on to the second part of the psychology of money, which is the fact that being or feeling broke literally makes you worse at money. And bear with me here because this is relevant even if you're doing well financially. The story that people tell themselves is that if you're not good with money, you're just not trying hard enough. You need to budget better, want it more, or be more careful with money. And it turns out that story is not just unhelpful, it's actually almost completely backwards. And here I want to talk about the research of Mulay Natan and Shafir out of Harvard and Princeton, who studied what happens to people's minds when they are under real financial stress. And what they found is honestly a little bit shocking because being broke reduces your cognitive capacity more than going an entire night without sleep. So let me just say that again because I think it's worth sitting with. Financial stress doesn't just feel bad, it measurably, scientifically makes you worse at thinking. Not because people who are struggling financially are less capable, but because the experience of scarcity itself eats up your brain power. And the way it works is that when money is tight, your brain is running this constant background process all day long. This low hum of, do I have enough? Can I cover this? What happens if something goes wrong? And that process is very expensive because it's using up the exact mental bandwidth that you would otherwise be using to plan ahead, to make good decisions, or to think clearly about the future. So you end up in this really brutal loop. Being broke makes it harder to think clearly, and not being able to think clearly makes it harder to get unbroke. And this is why I genuinely get so frustrated with a lot of the money advice out there, because almost all of it is aimed at willpower. Just be more disciplined, just try harder, just make better choices. But willpower is the exact thing that scarcity is actively draining out of you. You cannot out-discipline a brain that is running at reduced capacity because it's under constant financial stress. So it's like telling someone to run faster while quietly removing the oxygen from the room. Now, here's the part that I think makes this relevant to everyone watching, even if you're in a place where you're not financially struggling, because the same researchers found that being constantly busy does the exact same thing to your brain that being broke does. So time scarcity and money scarcity tax your cognitive capacity in exactly the same way. If you're that woman who's always overwhelmed, always behind, always juggling too many things, and never feeling there's enough hours in the day, I do feel like I'm talking about myself, then your brain is under the same kind of load and it's affecting how you think about money too. So what actually helps and what the research points to is not trying harder, it is creating slack. And I mean that really practically. So having a small emergency fund, even just a few months of essential expenses so that your brain isn't constantly bracing for the next unexpected thing, and automating your bills and your savings so those decisions stop taking space in your head every month. Getting enough sleep, reducing the number of active decisions that your brain has to make on any given day. Every single one of those things quietly hands you back some of the cognitive capacity that scarcity was stealing. And that matters so much more than trying to discipline your way through it, because you're literally buying back your own ability to think clearly. And thinking clearly is where every good financial decision starts. Now, part 3 of what you need to know about money psychology is about happiness. You know the phrase, money doesn't buy happiness, and you might even have heard about the research behind it that suggests that money stops making you happier after a certain point. So for years, the number that got quoted everywhere when it came to this research was around $75,000 a year. And it came from a study by Daniel Kahneman, who is a Nobel laureate. So people took it seriously and everyone repeated it. If you earn more than $75,000, then that extra money won't make you happier. It can buy happiness, but only up to a point, and then it stops mattering. And then years later, another researcher called Matthew Killingsworth ran a much larger study with completely different methodology and found out the exact opposite. He found that happiness just kept rising with income and that there isn't a plateau or ceiling. It just kept going. So now you have two sets of serious, respected researchers with completely contradictory findings. What happened is that instead of ignoring each other, they did something that is pretty rare in academia. They teamed up and they brought in a neutral third party to oversee and ran a collaboration to actually figure out who was right. The answer that they landed on is honestly more interesting than either of the original conclusions, because here's what's actually true. For most people, the ones who are already reasonably happy, happiness does keep rising with income. There is no magic number where it stops. More money genuinely does keep making life better for most people in most situations. But for a smaller group, the people who are carrying real deep unhappiness, money helps up to a point, and then it does stop, because the things making them unhappy aren't things that money can fix. So think about grief, heartbreak, depression, unprocessed pain. More income does not touch any of those things. And as one of the researchers put it, if you're rich and miserable, more money won't help. And I really want you to hear what this means, especially if you're a woman who's ever felt a bit guilty or shallow for wanting more money, because the money can't buy happiness line has been used to make us feel like ambition is unattractive. Like wanting financial success means that you've got your priorities wrong, like a good person should be content with what she has. And the actual research gives you a permission slip. Wanting more money is not greedy. It's not shallow. For the vast majority of people, in the vast majority of situations, more money really does make life better. And the data backs you up on that completely. But, and this is the other side of it, and it's important, if you're using money to try to fix something that was never going to be fixed, then you will never have enough, because the hole isn't money shaped. And the more you chase it, the more exhausting it gets, because you keep arriving and it's still not there. So the honest question to sit with is, what am I actually chasing when I chase money? Is it security? Is it freedom? Is it proof of something? Because some of those things money can genuinely give to you, and some of them need a completely different answer. Now, when you put the three parts of this video together, you start to get a completely different picture of why money stuff is hard. It is not because you're irresponsible. It is not because you don't try hard enough. It is that you're running on programming that you never consciously chose, that got installed before you were old enough to question it. And it's that scarcity of money, time, and mental space that has been quietly draining the exact cognitive capacity that you need to make good decisions. And you've been fed confusing and guilt-laden stories about what money can and cannot do for you, which makes it even harder to admit what you actually want. None of that is your fault, but now that you can see it, it is your responsibility to do something about it. So if you want to learn more about making money and setting it all up so that your brain can finally relax a little bit, I would love to invite you inside Rich Girl Academy, which is my membership and community where I cover all things money, from investing to budgeting to building wealth, and where you can ask me anything along the way. And you can now try it completely free for 7 days with the link in the description, and I cannot wait to see you there.